and I'm gonna show you how temperature changes can turn your good brisket into a fantastic brisket. Ooh yeah, looking really good. We're gonna pull it out and see how we did. And that's your goal. You know, you can smoke a brisket at 225 degrees from start to finish and absolutely make a good brisket. Or you can watch this video from start to finish, and I'm gonna show you how temperature changes can turn your good brisket into a fantastic brisket. Let's go. All right, y'all, let's get started. Now we're gonna use the Weber kettle today, and we're gonna use the slow and sear and some B&B charcoal. I'm also gonna use the Spider Girls Venom device. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll put a link to it right here. And for you folks watching on TV, I'll put a link for it down in the description. Our brisket is a 12-pound brisket from Sam's. As you can see here, I trimmed it pretty aggressively. I trimmed it last night and seasoned it last night so I could get a dry brine on it. But I did trim it pretty aggressively. And the seasoning, I like a Texas-style brisket rub. So the first thing I did was put some 16 mesh pepper on it, and then I came back with my rub that you'll learn a lot more about in the very near future. This is one of the last tests I'm doing with it, but it's a fantastic base rub. We're gonna smoke it 225 degrees to start. So 225 is not a bad temperature to use. It's definitely one you wanna use. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, first and foremost, it puts a lot more smoke out than a higher temperature does. 225 is a much more smoky temperature. Plus it keeps your brisket pretty moist so that smoke will then adhere to your brisket and you get that smoke flavor you're wanting on there. Those are the two main reasons for 225. So now let's get our kettle to 225 and get our brisket on. All right, folks, our temperature got to 225, so we're gonna go ahead and put our brisket on now. I did use some post oak chunks in the charcoal to get that good post oak flavor. Let's go ahead and get our brisket on. Put that lid down on the ground so it stays out of your way. And what I want to do is take the decal end, this fatty end, and put it towards the fire for a little bit of protection for the brisket. Definitely the way you shape it up on the kettle is the way it's going to cook. So make sure you got it in the shape you want, kind of the form you want it. Let's put the probes in, temperature probes in. Put this one in back here in the point. Put this one up here in the flat. We'll let this brisket go for a few hours. Our main goal right now is to start the brisket to get warmed up, cooking a little bit, but more so for us to get some good smoke flavor onto our brisket. The moisture is going to start sweating, and that sweat will then pull that smoke flavor to the brisket, to our oak flavor we want on the brisket. So it'll be a few hours before I come back, and we'll talk about what our next step is and what our next temperature we're going to go to is and why we're going to go there. All right, y'all, we're about 2 hours into our cook. I've not looked one time yet. Let's take our lid off and see how we're doing. Oh, wow. There's some really good color on that. That looks really good for about 2.5 hours, I guess. Really good color. Got some good, you can see where it's sweating really good. The fat's starting to render just a little bit. And that's really good because we want that moisture in there to grab a hold of that smoke and give us that good oak smoke flavor. We're gonna wait for a while before we do anything else. Leave our temperature where it's at, 225. We're gonna check I don't know if you can see it or not, but our bark is not quite set yet. We got some stickiness coming off on our fingers. That's what we don't want. We're gonna hold on till our bark is set before we do anything else. Now we're gonna check temperatures and just see where we're at. Here in the point, we're at 127, and in the flat, we're at 150. In between, probably in the 140 range. 137, something like that. So we're gonna loop back on here. So we're at 225. We're gonna stay there until our bark gets set, probably a couple more hours. And then we'll talk about some temperature changes and what we're gonna do with that. All right, folks, we're at the 4 hour mark, and that doesn't mean anything specific other than I start checking for certain things at the 4 hour mark. And right now I'm gonna check to see how well my bark has been set, because if it's been set well, I'll go ahead and jump my temperature from 225 up to 250. So let's take the lid off and take a look here. Ooh yeah, looking really good, man. Look at the color on that brisket, it looks fantastic. Got a little pulling there, I'll trim that off a little bit. But other than that, it looks really, really good. Now, what I'm gonna do is feel the brisket and see if this rub is coming off my finger still. And if it does, that means the bark's not set yet. And there's just a very little bit of pepper actually, or something coming off my finger. It's definitely set. It's time to move our temperature up to 250, so I'll do that. But let's first check and see the temperature of the brisket. So the point is looking at about 160, the flat mid 170s, 162, 160, somewhere in that range. And between the two, about 150, 152. So a lot of people at this point will wrap their brisket. They feel like they're going into the stall, and that may be the case. But what I do is I make sure that I can pop this fat with my finger before I wrap my brisket. I can't pop it at all. It's very tough still. I'm gonna wait till it gets about 180 degrees. That's usually when that happens, around the 180 range. I'll then wrap it at that point, and I'll go over with you fat, collagen, and all the parts that are involved with that when we go to wrap it. All All right, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and check the brisket and see if it's time to wrap or not. Now, it looks really, really good there. You can see the coloring on it's fantastic. Hope you can see that really well. Looks really, really good. Now let's take a feel of it. Oh yeah, you can see that fat right there is just perfectly rendered. Getting more so, but plenty good enough, plenty pillowy enough to go ahead and break it open and go ahead and wrap it. So what I'm gonna do, let's actually just temp it first and see where we're at temperature-wise and have an idea there. Here in the point, reading 180. Here in the middle, 175, 174. And down here in the flat, it's 190 right there. 182, 181, so it depends on where you're at, of course. So we're right in the range of wrapping it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Now I'm gonna pull it off, put it in some butcher paper, and I'll bring you back as we do that. All right, I'll go ahead and wrap our brisket now. I've got it sitting right here, and I wanna spray some water here onto the butcher paper to help make it more pliable and easier to roll up. So does a really good job with that. Now also, got some tallow here I wanna pour onto it. There that is. Now we're gonna wrap this up. Now, I wanna talk to you a little bit while I do this about the difference between fat and collagen. People put them in the same sentence because they are both abundant in a brisket, but they are very different and they require very different processes. Let's take fat first. Now, when heat hits fat, it starts to melt. As the brisket starts to heat up, the fat starts to render and it turns to liquid. Of course, lower temperatures make fat render slower and higher temperatures make it render faster. And that's what's happening earlier on when I was pushing on the brisket with my finger and you saw it looks real pillowy before I wrapped. That shows you that the fat has rendered very well, and that's what we're looking for. But the fat that does render does not create tenderness, y'all. That's not where our tenderness comes from. Now let's talk about collagen. Now collagen basically is just strictly connective tissue. It holds muscle together, and there's so much of it in a cow, it's crazy. And that's why the brisket is probably the toughest cut on the entire cow, because there's so much connective tissue there. But when heat starts to hit it, it breaks down and eventually turns into gelatin. And that is where your tenderness comes from. Fat melts into juiciness and flavor and richness, and collagen transforms into gelatin, which creates your tenderness. That's what you're looking for. But it takes time and heat for both of these things. It's why we can't cook a brisket at, say, 400 degrees, because collagen wouldn't be broken down then. Your brisket would be well done, pot roasty, but then your collagen would still not be broken down. It'd be very tough and very chewy. That's the cat and mouse game we play with brisket. We try to make sure our collagen's rendered and our brisket's not gone too far to become pot roast. And that's hopefully what I did with this brisket we did today. Now I'll go ahead and finish it off back in the kettle. When it gets to the tenderness I want, I'll put it in the warming cabinet. That'll have about a 12-hour rest. I'll bring you guys back in the morning and let you see how we did. All right, folks, it's the next morning. Our brisket has been resting right about 11 or 12 hours. We're gonna pull it out and see how we did. Plenty of moisture here. Of course, you saw that tallow I poured on there too. That helps as well. Plenty of tallow here. Looks good there, guys. Looks very, very good. Soaked up most of those juices. There's a little bit in there, but not much. It looks like it soaked up most of them. Yep. All right, folks, there we go. Looks really, really good. Feels really good. Some jiggle to it there, to say the least. That's what we're looking for, of course, right? Let's cut it open and see how we did. Feels tender. All right, here we go. Telltale sign. Here we go. That looks pretty good. Got some good juices in there. Got a terrific smoke ring. Really pleased with that. Now, how'd this happen? We talked about the temperatures that we're gonna look at, right? At the beginning of the video, I told you we're gonna talk about temperature changes and how that makes a better brisket. Well, we're looking at 225 is where we started. That's where we wanna start. And we talked about how we want that smoke adherence. And there's two reasons. One, it starts making the brisket sweat a little bit, renders a little bit of fat at 225. Also, you get more smoke at 225 than you do at higher temperatures. So you've got two things working for you. The fat rendering, get a little shininess, a little bit of moisture, and the smoke adhering to it. We do that for about the first 4 hours to about 160 degrees. And that's where a lot of people will go ahead and wrap, is 160, because they know it's getting ready to go into the stall. And that's perfectly fine. Your bark's really getting set there. You're definitely getting some more fat rendering on that. Your collagen's starting to lighten up, loosen up a little bit, but not really where you want it after 4 hours, nowhere near where you want it to be. But it starts going, okay, I know what you want from me now, and it's starting to do that. I don't wrap then. We talked about that. I wrap a little bit later till I get to about 180 degrees and where my fat can pop it, or at least indent it very well. That's what I like to do before I wrap mine. I also make sure that bark is really set. Usually I do that at the 4 hour mark, the 160 degrees, the brisket's set. I will raise my temperature then to 250. at that 4-hour mark as long as my bark is set. I was good to go to move it to 250 degrees at the 4-hour mark at 160 degrees. Now, that got me up to the 180 mark quickly because I didn't wrap then, and I also made my fat render faster so I could then wrap my brisket. When I wrapped it, I then turned it up to 275, and that is where the collagen really starts to render out and transform into gelatin. And that's your goal. You want to have very good rendered or denatured collagen into gelatin so that you get that tenderness that we're looking for. That's the hard part, and that's what you keep doing briskets for, to get to that magic number and that magic feel. So here we go. Let's take a slice of it and see how it tastes. See if we got good tenderness out of this thing. See how we did here, folks. Holds up under its own weight. Definitely got a good flop test to it. Like I said, the biggest thing is it holds up under its own weight. And how's it pull apart? Let's see if it pulls apart easily. Oh yeah, oh, perfect guys, absolutely perfect. Let's see how it tastes. Remember, I did my rub on this one. This is my final test for my rub. Let's see how it tastes. Oh yeah. Great Texas brisket taste. My goodness, pepper forward. The other flavors are in there as well. Very pleased with that turnout, guys. Brisket turned out beautifully. It's good and tender. Very pleased with this, guys. Couldn't ask for a better brisket. Let's get a slice of this. Look at that, folks. Slice of the point looks fantastic. Pull this apart, take a little bite of it. Can't fit the whole thing in my mouth. Here we go. Point. Cheers, guys. Tender and juicy. Guys, that's a fantastic brisket, I have to say. It's cooked perfectly. I wish they all turned out like this. They don't all turn out like this. This one did very, very well. Very pleased with this brisket. Guys, I hope you got something out of this. Understand how your temperature changes at certain points will make your brisket even much better than leaving it at 225 the entire time. Make sure you go to 225 to 250, 250 to 275 at the right times, and get used to that. Try a couple briskets in a row one weekend. See how you do. Guys, hope you got some value out of it. I certainly hope you hit the like button, and please subscribe to our channel. We greatly appreciate that. Until next time, I'll meet you at the smoker.